So good, so good, so good.
Spring styles are at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and they're up to 60% off. Stock up and save on Rag & Bone, Madewell, Vince, All Saints, and more of your favorites.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Why do we rack? For the hottest deals. Just so many good brands.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wrestling Draft.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Wrestling Draft here on the Wrestling Draft YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts from in the audio realm. I am Scott McClary. We are just, say, around 4 weeks or so away from WrestleMania. Everything's taking shape. Wasn't the most interesting week score-wise, I have to say, because we're in that weird week where rarely we don't have a pay-per-view, PLE, whatever you want to call them, special coming up, but things are going to get more interesting as the weeks go on. And join me to talk about everything that's going on is my co-host, as always, David Hockney. Hello, David.
Oh, tell you what, I've grown a new appreciation for coffee this week because last week and a couple of weeks prior, I've been having issues with trapped nerves in my back and I've been losing sleep as a result. But tell you what, some freshly ground coffee from some of the finest independent coffee shops here in the West End are exactly what a successful country club owner needs to get through the troubles and strife of the life of, you know, trying to mingle with everyday citizens. So, yeah. And I know I was rambling, but that's the coffee talking.
Cool. I stopped listening the first time you mentioned coffee.
Yep.
The idea,
I could have said something else.
The idea that you trying to, you know, relate to ordinary people. But speaking of people who don't relate to the ordinary people, the Overlord, the man who sits up on a high tower looking down at us little folks, Stephen Wilson, buggered off. And he posted some scores into the chat before he was unavailable. And even though you gave me the facilities to input scores for NXT and AEW, there seemed to be a glitch in the matrix. So the scores we're giving here in terms of the leaderboard don't include AEW and NXT, but we'll update all those scores and we'll be up to date from next week. But I'll be honest with you, the positioning in the table doesn't change even if you input those scores. It's just the exact number, but you know, everyone's position on the table is pretty much the same as it was for them. And when Stephen first put the scores in a few days ago, as we talked about last week, we're talking about a lot of the undrafted stars of this league, the people who are going big scores, big numbers, and like people like Tekla and like Trick Williams and people like that jump. But you know, it seems to be another week where a lot of those unsigned picks, undrafted picks were scoring, so it wasn't really affecting many people on like NXT and AEW. So we're going to go through the leaderboard and hopefully things will be back together next week. And this is just another reason why Seymour should not leave us unattended in the last week, because he seems to be the only person who knows how to deal with this and yet leaves us to figure it out. And I told you it was like a weird week in terms of scoring wise because there's no big preview to lead up to. That's reflected in the top three that we have here, where we have Solo Sikoa in 3 points, Bailey and Lyra Valkyria on 4 points, finally getting back into more of a tag team swing outside of, you know, their singles, with Bailey recently unsuccessfully challenging for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. And speaking of tag team, one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions, Lash Legend, and it's 7 points. A unique one, a different kind of top team than we've had before. What's standing out to you about these three picks?
Well, Solo's sort of tied with Paul Heyman, Jacob Fatu, and Drew McIntyre here all on 3. And I think most of those just come down from appearances primarily. But the direction that Solo and the MFT seems to be taking has been rather unexpected, shall we say, because it looks like some dissension in the ranks with the MFTs. Maybe Tamatonga could be breaking off on his own a little bit, but they've now lost the tag team championships to the very odd pairing of Damian Priest and R-Truth. So, I mean, but Solo's appearance points alone, with the MFTs is, I mean, that can't really be ignored. But even with just 3 points, tying with, others who made some appearance points here and there, it's not a massive boost in the overall scores, shall we say. And I think this could just be a one-off in terms of overall low scoring. But I'm more curious as to how, where Solo and the MFTs go from here with the build to WrestleMania drawing ever closer, because it looks like the loss of the WWE tag titles from the MFTs is just going to hamper No Vibe Nation's progress on the Premier League table.
Mm-hmm. Seems like they're really just dragging out the whole like MFTs, Wyatt's feud, just so they can have a big multi-man clusterfuck WrestleMania match. It's kind of like when the Final Testament and like Lashley and the Street Profits were feuding for weeks on end, just so they could have that big Philadelphia street fight match a couple of years ago. Maybe one of those ones. Looking at Lash Legend, obviously her and Nia Jax winning the tag titles was an unforeseen moment in the draft. I mean, it worked out because one of the former champions was on the Jameson team and they went on to win the Chamber. But Lash Legend being on Andy and JP's team, I think she's one of the dark horse picks of the season. She's on 27.5 points overall. Obviously being one half of the tag team, but picked singly, Nia Jax not selected. I think with that and with like before when they've been positioning on War Games and the big performance in the Royal Rumble, do you think people from next season onwards, especially maybe the lower and maybe third or fourth onwards, should be looking more sort of Lash Legend in terms of a player in the women's division?
Oh, for sure. Like when I saw her compete at the Rumble, I thought, yeah, she's going to be treated like a big deal, post Mania season at best, because her eliminating 5 superstars, and some of them were massive names, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky. Like, I think it just goes to show they're going to put a lot of eggs in Lash Legend's basket at this point. Yeah, I don't know if it's just because of her sheer size and power game that pretty much closely matches that of Nia Jax. But the run she's having with the women's tag titles at the minute just goes to show, why somebody didn't draft her after the Rumble. Well, in this case, they did. But I think why she hasn't been picked up before in some cases, it's just proving to see, why she does need to be considered in future selections.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she's going to climb up to the Rhea Ripley, Stephanie Vicaire kind of level, even Bayley level of like some seasons ago. But she's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
At least you got to consider her for at least round 3.
Yeah. Especially when there's a wider net to be cast from next season onwards. It's much like a long-term season stretching on to SummerSlam. But looking at the actual leaderboard, we have Gary Morrison, Robert Shaw, with the people finally cracking the 3-digit marker, 103 points. Just ahead of them is the aforementioned Vibalist Nation of Matt Smith and Alan Lucas on 105 points. And just ahead of them is 110 points myself and Tom Brock with the Brock and Scott Connection. There's Roscoe, Dave Campbell and my brother Ross on 114.5 points. Then yourself, David, 130.5 points with Stacey Smith. Then Andy and JP with 142.5 points. We have the Jamesons on 147 points. And then 167 points are the Think Tank. Quite a gap. One of the bigger gaps we've had so far between 1 and 2. I mean, placement-wise, not much has changed. And like I said, when we input our new scores, the updated scores, not much will change there either. But one thing I do have to point out is it's just my imagination because, sometimes you can't even remember what's happened week on week. Where Matt Smith and Analytics is not much farther up the table than they are this week, because I had almost double take looking at them being in second from bottom.
Oh, there was a point in the season, I think at best they were third, and they've just plummeted down the table. You had Bronson Reed get injured or silled, as the terms we like to call it. Becky Lynch dropped the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Gunther has been MIA despite retiring 3 legends in the last few months, and he still doesn't have a Mania program given that Rey Mysterio is now injured. The Usos are doing next to fuck all except go up against the Vision, but they do have a tag title defense on Monday against the Vision in a street fight. Are the titles going to change hands like we've seen with other championships on the road to Mania? I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to do another shock title change just for the sake of shock factor. But the only thing carrying them is Willow Nightingale at the minute. And why they didn't put the captaincy on her before the start is beyond me. Because as far as I'm aware, they haven't shifted the captaincy off of Becky Lynch, and she's still on single digits at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they did take a hit recently with Willow losing the women's tag title. I mean, she is still TBS champion, and I think they've announced a rematch for, I don't know if it's on Collision or on next week on Dynamite, but upcoming they've got a rematch against Megan Bain and Lena Cross, although I don't see them winning that one.
No.
Gunther, like I said, we had some doubts about him because his necessarily planned Mania opponent was in jeopardy, but we'll see what happens with him in the coming weeks. Looking at the think tank and the Jamesons, also John Moxley and CM Punk have been 2 solid players for them. I mean, they could be helped with the likes of Wilson Shelfler, even though they're picked singularly. The plan is, and we were going to talk about some WrestleMania matches later on the show, but like their plan is for a 4-way women's tag title match, and Alexa and Charlotte are factored into that match, so I think that will help them as well.
Not to mention as well, their tag team is the Vision of Logan Paul and Austin Theory. So if they win the tag titles on Raw, they'll have a commanding lead going into WrestleMania at this stage. And as you mentioned, Moxley has been the juggernaut for their team. The captaincy applied, 41.5 points without the captaincy applied. He's the top scorer of the season. 6 wins on TV is what's driving that, along with 15 appearances.
I mean, we've been talking about what's happening in Mania. I mean, I think they've announced at Dynasty that Moxley will fight Will Ospreay. Whether or not that's going to be for the title is, I don't think, still unknown. They just confirmed that the match is indeed happening. I mean, I wouldn't put all the money on the Usos losing the titles just yet, because I think there's a chance that Rollins gets involved with the Vision match, given his current feud with them.
Maybe.
Looking at the Jamesons, obviously, a lot of their success, should be pointed out, is happening with just 5 of their 6 picks. But with the Rollins feud, as I mentioned, there is reports that Braun Breaker is doing everything to get back in time for WrestleMania to have a match with Seth Rollins as was planned. So we'll see how that might change the fortunes if Braun is able to come back. Because I think we'll be talking differently about the Jamesons in terms of their performance near the top of the table if Braun was here, because Braun would have been probably near the top of the season scores overall.
For sure.
Given how heavily he's been pushed.
I'll tell you what, though, I think the Jamesons started off strong, but they've cooled down rapidly as a result. Rhea Ripley in the Elimination Chamber is what really sort of got the ball rolling for them. But Braun Breaker's
they're
injury...
near the top of the table even before that, with help from Rhea Ripley mostly, and also...
Yeah, I'm just saying in contrast to the think tank, which has now got a sizable gap between them. And I think a lot of that can be put down to both Moxley and CM Punk, as you mentioned. But Joe Hendry is set to defend the NXT title in a fatal 4-way at Stand and Deliver, also involving Ricky Saints, Ethan Page, and Tony D'Angelo. So could Hendry possibly drop it and then get called up to the main roster?
Yeah, we shouldn't all put our bets on just WrestleMania, because we have 2 pay-per-views in the 2 weeks before that. I think it's I can't remember if it's Dynasty then NXT, but like we have those 2 major shows that could even change up the table heading into that.
Yeah, I think
this week on NXT they were setting a lot up this week and next week to set up a card for Stand and Deliver.
I think Stand and Deliver is a week on Saturday.
There you go. It's weird that they've decided, okay, we're going to move away from NXT from like Mania weekend, because it's always weird, always have an NXT.
Yeah. Do you know why I think they've done that? Well, not only because of, they can no longer stream on Peacock stuff. There's some stuff going on behind the scenes about TV deals, and now they're going to be streaming it on YouTube. But I reckon, and maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit, but maybe they've distanced it from WrestleMania because they know that more people are going to be invested in the NXT product, and you're going to get better content out of NXT than you will on the main roster. I mean, we've seen it many a times in the past where the NXT takeover outshone that year's WrestleMania by quite a bit. I mean, just look at New Orleans, for example, in 2018. That takeover buried that year's WrestleMania.
I mean, also the amount of content that he's cramming into Mania Weekend. I mean, they've affected the Mania Weekend takeovers and the fact that they put them on at like 9-10 a.m. like local time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to watch wrestling at 10 a.m. I don't even want to think about wrestling until at least 11. And then it's on like, it's fine for us. We're on at tea time over here, but I remember Gary went to WrestleMania a few years ago, and him and Ollie going like really early in the morning to stand and deliver that year. It's probably better being separate, being its own thing. But yeah, the think tank, they've been fighting back and forth with the Jamesons a lot recently, but this is, like I said, the most sizable lead they've had so far, and I think it might take quite a bit. Like a major loss from Moxley at Dynasty would be something that would slow them down. I mean, also, it wouldn't help them right at the finish line if Punk were to lose the World Championship to Roman Reigns.
But let's not forget the biggest match they've got ahead for the think tank, and that's El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano, mask versus mask. And I don't like the OG's chances in this one.
We'll be seeing double, 4 Americanos.
But I tell you what, though, I think Ludwig Kaiser's depiction of El Grande has taken off like nobody's business. He's absolutely adored in Mexico. And I think if he keeps that character for his career, I think he's sorted for life at this point.
Well, let's see who's sorted for next season and who has the best chances of winning this Listeners League and joining us here in the main league. Dave, what's going on currently in the Listeners League? What's the competition looking like down there?
Well, again, not much change from the last couple of weeks, but we have a new entry into the top 5. But we'll... actually, I think it might be 2 new entries, but then again, I can't remember what I had for dinner 2 nights ago. But anyway, 5th place in the Listeners League, we have Stuart Cowie with the Learning Tree, 146.5 points. 4th place, Luke Scott with the Bumps, 149. Now, I know Luke's been out of the top 5 for a while, so I think him breaking in is the new addition this week. His team consists of Obafemi, Lash Legend, Division, Paul Heyman, Io Sky, and Tommaso Ciampa. And he's put the captaincy on Obafemi as well, who, by my recollection, is also tied with... I mean, we've got him on the West End Wine Lovers, but we've got the captaincy on Carmelo Hayes. And if you put the captaincy on Oba, it would just about match what Carmelo's had. So I think it was been a decent choice of captain either way. Division and Paul Heyman, I think, as 2 separate picks is smart for them. It's appearance points easily. And aforementioned Division have got their Street Fight tag team title match coming up on Monday. So a chance for possibly some more points down that front. 3rd place, Nikki Presland, Dwayne the Rock, Paper, Scissors. Again, not much shifting from that position. Nikki's team consists of Carmelo Hayes, Rhea Ripley, MJF, Division, Sol Ruka, and Gunther. Solid team on paper, I must say. Again, the Vision popping up yet again. That seems to be the running theme of this event. They've also got the captaincy on Carmelo Hayes. So again, taking notes from the West End Wine Lovers in this one. And speaking of West End Wine Lovers, we have Stacey Love with Say Their Name. Still in 2nd place, but just 2 points ahead of Nikki on 156.5. Their team consists of CM Punk, Lash Legend, Joe Hendry, Tiffany Stratton, The Usos, and Finn Balor. Lash Legend obviously being the big scorer for them. CM Punk is their captain, and they've got The Usos lined up to defend the tag titles, possibly a win for them down the line. Tiffany Stratton as well, not mentioned her yet. She's going to be on SmackDown gunning for the Women's United States title against Julia, so it could be a much-needed boost for Stacey. But 10 points ahead is Lee McAteer on 166.5 with JP's Love Child. So Lee's team consisting of Cody Rhodes, Lash Legend, Joe Hendry, Paul Heyman, Tiffany Stratton, and Dark State. So some common names popping up between 1st and 2nd in this case, but Cody Rhodes obviously leading the charge. Joint 9th overall with Kyle Fletcher on 31, but they do have the captaincy on Cody, so that seems to be the big driver, along with Lash Legend being the top scorer. So Lee holding his lead steady, but I think there's opportunity for the other 4 in the top 5 to potentially close that gap on the road to Mania.
amazing that Lee has been doing so well, and he's TNM is for a reason called JP's Love Tales, and even JP, we had him on the show, and he doesn't know why it's called that. I mean, it's one of those questions that may never be answered. I don't even know if I want it to be answered.
Top-notch color commentary from JP, if I do say so.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking ahead to what's been in the match because I didn't know about the thing you mentioned about the women's the match between Julia and Tiffany Stratton. It seems to be a non-title match, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, maybe it's to set up a title match at WrestleMania. I hope it would.
I don't know. I saw somewhere it looked like the title was on the line on SmackDown. But either way, I'm finding it a bit odd they haven't tried to extend this program all the way to Mania. I mean, they've still got a couple of weeks to do it.
Yeah. And it does also seem like, from what I'm seeing here, that the Bella Twins will be on SmackDown this week. Because I think I mentioned a multi-women match, and I believe it's meant to be the Bellas, Charlotte and Alexa, Bayley and Lyra, and the Irresistible Forces.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the Kabuki Awards have been taken out. Allegedly, it'll be either Io versus Asuka, or maybe even some sort of Japanese triple threat with Kairi thrown in the middle. You've got 2 nights to fill, so you might as well. The stories might not all be there, but as long as there's quality in, right?
Everybody gets a spot on the card. It's like when they had the tag team showcase matches for Mania 39, and Rousey and Shayna were in the women's one. Mm-hmm. And you'd expect Ronda to have a more of a marquee presence there, but she's just thrown in a multi-women tag match.
Looking at the listeners, we've seen Anthony Fitzpatrick just fall just outside of the top 5, even by a half point. It's very disappointing. His team name being Main League didn't complete it. Well, it doesn't look like you'll be completing this Listeners League again anytime soon. If you keep this up. But look at your team.
Funny enough, Dominic Mysterio was his lowest scorer, 15 points. Probably because
Dominic Mysterio.
because he's lost the Intercontinental title to Penta. He was out for quite a bit, and he seems to be doing a lot more in AAA these days. I mean, he's just stopped El Hijo de Vikingo from challenging him, but now it looks like he's going to a feud with Balor.
See, do I need to, because of the Dominic thing, start a campaign of count AAA shows? Because I will. I mean, I don't know. I don't really care if they do get counted, but I'll do it just to be a nuisance.
Yeah. But remember, the rule is it's WWE AEW programming, but any title defense counts as a title defense, even if it's a AAA, a CMLL, etc. So if Dom defends the AAA title on WWE programming, fair enough, it's fair game.
I know the rules. I've been here long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at, I mentioned the Bella Twins there on your and Stacey team, where you've got a whole 3 points on them right so far.
Well, they're getting there.
You also have Maria Shafir. I don't know how much more she'll play into the season, but she has been fairly strong. I mean, she did even get most of it's been appearances, but she did get even though she lost the Revolution, she did get a win alongside Daniel Garcia and Jon Moxley in a trios match this week on AEW. I mentioned Ethan Page being in the 4-way for the NXT title. You also have JC Jane, who will fight the winner of next week's Kendall Gray versus Lola Vice match.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, I would not put high hopes into either one of your NXT picks going into WrestleMania.
Listen, as long as Ethan doesn't take the pin in the Fatal 4-way, I'm happy.
I mean, it also leaves you with the Bella Twins going into the tag match and Anoba Femi seemingly answering Brock Lesnar's open challenge. It also just leaves Carmelo Hayes the lone person. He's your highest scorer with all the open challenges.
Yep.
But no indications to where that US title is going come WrestleMania.
Don't worry, me and Stacey have got a plan for WrestleMania week, so you just watch this space.
Tell me what to do. Looking ahead, also, I think we're talking about potential matches, and we're looking at how those could fight the tail. Also, Dominic Mysterio potentially against Finn Balor. I'm hoping that even though Finn Balor is the one that got screwed over, Dominic's the guy who's got all the future potential. So if they hopefully put him over at Mania, Tiffany Stratton could make her get herself into a US title match. I also have Liv Morgan, who's alongside me and Tom have Liv Morgan, who's challenging for the women's world title, and Roman Reigns challenging for the men's world title at WrestleMania. So that's pretty much me sitting here. The only instance heading into WrestleMania is that I'm going to hit a massive Canadian speed bump on the way to Dynasty because I don't have any faith in FTR to not lose against Cope and Cage.
You know what? You could be a late sprinter like you did last season. You know, you were close to the bottom of the table, or I think you were the bottom of the table, and then you finished in second because of Roman Reigns winning the Rumble. So, I mean, if Roman Reigns, Liv Morgan, and Tiffany Stratton all win on the road to Mania or at Mania itself, I think you may be looking at a bit of a comeback and maybe get yourself out of that bottom half of the table.
Don't condescend to me, David. What are some of the
God's
matches you think
sake,
are
damned
going
if
to
you do,
be?
damned if you don't.
What are some of the matches you think could get still get announced at Mania? How do you think those will affect some of these teams?
I'm just having a look at the teams here. Just keeping an eye on Roscoe in particular. I think as it stands, you know, they've kind of got their matches in tow. You know, Jade Cargill defending against Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, possibly going against Asuka, as you mentioned before. You know, we may have some Kairi Sane involvement as well. Could get Balor versus Dominic as well. It's going to be one to watch in the next few weeks. But I think early predictions that haven't got on the card as of yet, I think we could see potentially Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu in a stipulation match, maybe like a Vegas street fight or last man standing match. But both those guys are with the people in this one. So
It's like their team. I think that match has been all but confirmed to me. I think we've had indications that they're looking to cross paths in some way since Jacob came back. So it's just a matter of confirming that. We can get it as early as this Friday. So Drew and Jacob being on the same team, that's a unique situation heading into Mania. I mean, to be fair, the people, even though I don't have the best votes for the people to get much further than the bottom tip spot that they're in, they do have Julia, as we mentioned, who might be defending against Tiffany Stratton. They have Bailey and Lyra, who will be in the mix for the tag titles. They also have Sol Ruka, who I think they've set up her and Zarya in a match for Stand and Deliver coming up.
yeah.
The blip on their team right now is Toni Storm, who even though she won at Revolution, it seemed like she was last minute taken out of a match with Marina for Dynamite, and Mina Shirakawa was put in her place. And it seems like Tony will be out for the rest of the season and pretty much indefinitely. She'll be gone. So that's
surprise.
They've been fairly solid on that one. It's just a case of, you know, what happens with the rest of their team. I mean, can they jump into second last place? I don't know. I mean, they've got a great team on paper. I don't know what it is that hasn't worked out for them. I mean, maybe Drew losing the title isn't going to help.
I think they're really going to struggle to get out of that bottom spot because, I mean, they have to hope that Julia keeps the United States title for as long as she does, despite being their lowest scorer. And the Drew McIntyre, Jacob Fatu stuff's just going to cancel each other out. So they're going to get win points and loss points all in one. And I'm not sure how I feel about Sol Ruka going into Stand and Deliver because it seems like the crowd is backing Zarya for being a justifiable heel, and you don't get many of those these days. If I'm being honest, like, and that's what makes the creative direction so unpredictable because you never know how the audience is going to react to a face and a heel these days because it's not panto style anymore. This is, you know, cheering for justifiable actions. And I think Zarya could potentially start to find herself on even straights with Sol Ruka at this point.
I think most of the mini card, I think even if it hasn't been officially confirmed, I think it's pretty much set in stone here. I think based on that, a lot of Stephen and Gary's team, the think tank, are set up for WrestleMania. Also, Moxley won't be a Mania, but they'll have the match at Dynasty. We'll see what happens with him there.
I'll tell you what I'd like to see though. I'd like to see Mello versus Trek for the US title.
Yeah, you'd hope that would be there. If you're going to set up with this close to Mania, despite the fact he's mainly been doing open challenges rather than actual feuds, you can easily slide Carmelo into a program with. Then there's that.
And they've got history in NXT. It practically writes itself.
And we're talking about like people who haven't been drafted but are scoring well. I mean, Penta has already racked up a couple of IC title defenses, but all that go on. I mean, this is the thing with WWE having so many fucking belts that not all of them can even get on WrestleMania. I mean, there's a chance that some of these title matches we talked about, particularly for the two US title wins, could do what they do sometimes and bump them to like the SmackDown before Mania, where they keep trying to make a thing, even though people won't see it as big as WWE wants them to.
It's like when Nick Aldis made that massive TLC match on the SmackDown after Mania 41, and everybody just groaned because they're like, "No, we want that in Mania." It's I think they need to learn from past mistakes, and albeit they did sort of do that at SummerSlam this past year, but no, they need to make it a spectacle, and it doesn't feel like a spectacle outside of maybe a handful of matches. And over 2 nights, you could fit maybe 16 matches total, 8 per night. And it doesn't have to be, all about storytelling. Sometimes you just got to give us, good match quality and titles getting defended, storylines being made for that hangover period between Mania and SummerSlam. Like, give us something to work with, create something new, give us something exciting.
Yeah. So I really think looking at, and I know that like Dynasty in particular, there's not as much NXT representation other than a couple of examples that we've already mentioned, like your team with Stacey and the Jamesons. But looking at it, I think it's been a 2-horse race for a little while, and I definitely think it's still going to come down to those two come WrestleMania. But I'm open to the possibility that these other pay-per-views we got on the road there could change things. But I don't know by how much. I'm very much looking ahead. I think we've got 1 or 2 people who are going to win this. And I think we need to just accept that that's what might be happening. But we can all finish on a high. Everybody's in triple digits now. I thought even the lowest would score highly. And I think so far that's what's happening. But, it's been a weird road booking-wise on NWE side on the road to WrestleMania. And that's helped some people immensely. And it's really hindered a lot of people. Like, it helped the Jamesons. It really hindered Gary Morris.
And not to mention No Vibe Nation as well.
Yeah, it really hindered those guys. It hindered me slightly as well, with Tiffany not winning the bloody chamber. But, could
have been worse. You've got Liv Morgan as well, and you've got Roman Reigns, in a very firm position, maybe to walk out of WrestleMania as champion.
Well, one thing I'm glad is that you suggested a thing about, why don't you put the captain on Tiffany Stratton and then take it off her after the chamber if you're so confident she's going to win it. And I'm glad I didn't do that. I've kept up Liv Morgan, and I'm kind of glad about that.
No, you proved it. You proved it right there. So fair play.
Yeah. We have 3 more episodes after this until the end of the season. We'll try and get some people on for those episodes and see what's happening on the road to WrestleMania. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to follow Wrestling Draft. Subscribe to us on YouTube. There's a like, rating, review, and your chosen audio platform, whether that be Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you choose to get your podcast. Follow us on Twitter at wrestling_draft. Thank you once again, David Hockney, for another week of draft analysis.
Yes, and I'll be back on the coffee tomorrow as I power through towards the weekend.
Well, that is just a relief.
Hey, listen, I could mention another type of beverage, but I've already been told off for it. But come next season...
I've been warning about that one.
I know, but come next season, I hope to be back on it.
And we'll be back on it next week with all your draft analysis here on the Wrestling Draft. We'll see you next time, everybody. It's same draft time, same draft channel.
Monster Energy. Everybody knows White Monster Zero Ultra. That's the OG. It kicked off this whole zero sugar energy drink thing. But Ultra is a whole lineup now. You've got Strawberry Dreams, Blue Hawaiian, Sunrise, and Vice Guava. And they all bring the Monster Energy punch. So if you've been living in the white can, branch out. Ultra's got a flavor for every vibe. And every single one is zero sugar. Tap the banner to learn more.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.